Mr. Kenton Pate. How are you doing today?
Doing wonderful, Sean. It's so good to be here with you and visiting with you, talking to you. Great to be here today.
Okay, I appreciate you. We were having a conversation that I believe could help others about distorted thinking. And my definition of distorted thinking is an inaccurate or slightly distorted way that people will view themselves. What would be your definition of distorted thinking?
Sean, that is a great question. And there's a lot of depth to that question. And, the power of the question determines the power of information that can flow. And I think that distorted thinking comes in naturally to all of us on a consistent basis, on a daily basis. But it's very important for us to be able to discern what is distorted thinking. And many times it can come out in behavioral patterns. The thinking will transition into words and transition into feelings and emotions and even behavioral patterns. So I think one example may be if someone were to say, every time I come to this location, there is traffic here and it makes me angry. That thought lets us know that that's distorted thinking, to think that every time, always, anytime that we begin to communicate and say always, every time, or never, that you have to circle those words of never and always, unless you're talking about the sun coming up and the sun going down.
Okay.
We know that every time it comes up. But there's other things that we sometimes program our minds with, that we have thoughts in our mind that are really not accurate, but we may think they're accurate because we've programmed ourselves with some distorted thinking.
You're correct. You're correct. Some things, especially in my lifetime, whether it was irrational thinking or criminal thinking or selfish thinking, I found myself dealing with distorted thinking. And the particular aspect that I'd really like to focus on in this particular conversation is extreme thinking, that all or nothing thinking, meaning either you're my friend or you're my enemy. And when I go to the extremities of those statements, everybody's not, this is my opinion, everybody is not your friend and everybody is not your enemy. And as a matter of fact, when I've thought like that, it seems like the box that has enemy on the top of it in my mind, sometimes a lot of these friends, they slowly but surely transition into that enemy box. And so when you were speaking about people making definitive, extreme terms, let's look at that a little bit more closely. What experiences have you had with that?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share on that, because yesterday I was with a group of 44 veterans talking about some of these topics, and we were talking about integrity, and we were talking about personal growth and development. And sometimes when we desire to grow, our friends are not always on board with us, or maybe family members are not on board. And so as we begin to grow, sometimes people, it's kind of like the crab effect. If you look at a bucket of crabs and one crab's trying to get out of the bucket, the other ones will reach up and pull that crab back down in the bucket and say, oh, no, you don't. You come back down here with us. And so whether it's in our subconscious thinking or our thoughts, or actually in reality in relationships, sometimes people will begin to say comments like, who do you think you are? Oh, you think you're better than we are? No, no, no. I just decided that I was going to get involved in renewing my thinking, personal development, start watching my words, and arrive at my future destination at a better place than I am today. And, being a person of value and bringing value to others means I'm going to be involved in growth. And we know that when we get involved in growth, there's going to be some discomfort. And because there's actually no growth in the comfort zone. and there's no comfort in the growth zone. So as we're growing, just yesterday, I was sitting at a round table with some men, and they were sharing with me some of their struggles as we have decided to grow and change our thinking, change our words, change our behavior. It appears that we have some enemies. And I said, let's recalibrate that thought. Those people are not your enemies. The people that were your friends that are not feeling as though they're your friends right now, you're just outgrowing them, and you decided to get out of the bucket with the rest of the group, and you decided to go to a new place. And at times those thoughts are trying to pull you back. And what you've got to determine is you've got to be courageous enough to say, I will go forward, but I'm still going to be your friend. And if you want to go with me, if you want to read with me, you're welcome to do that. But if not, I'm going to still move forward. I think that you're still my friend. We're going to be thinking different because I'm going to renew my thinking. And as a result of us renewing our thinking and moving forward, we have to be cautious that we don't assume that someone is our enemy just because they think different. We got to be careful that we don't judge somebody based on their background or the way they dress or how they look, that we realize that our greatest thing in life is to be a person of value, to bring value to all people. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter where they've been. Where we've been doesn't have to determine where we're going. And so I think if we decide in our mind that we want to arrive at our future self at a better place than we've been in our past, it's going to require us to deal with some thinking. And in that thinking process, things are going to shift, things are going to change. There's one scripture that I think of in Proverbs 23:7. It says, as a man thinketh, as a man thinketh. So it's a process, a thinking process. And so we've got a brain that's having thoughts that come to it. And as you habitually think on those thoughts consistently and meditate on them, they drop down into your subconscious. And as you habitually think on those same thoughts, they become patterns in your behavior. And so one of the things we talked about yesterday with a group of men is your thoughts determine your words determine your actions and your behavior determines your destiny. So the question is, how do you like yourself today? Do you want to make some adjustments and changes? And I would say I'm all in. I want to make some adjustments and changes. What about you, Sean?
I'm definitely about that. And when you were saying that, you articulated it so well, because just reiterating your point that as we think these thoughts, they develop into patterns of how we think. And one of the patterns that I addressed personally was the fact that when someone would slight me or do something that offended me, I would automatically think they purposely are disrespecting me, so I need to respond accordingly. And through my prayer life and through various classes at Carol Vance, your class, some other classes, I realized that I'm having these thoughts when someone may bump me or someone may slight me or someone may say something that cuts me the wrong way. I began to ask myself, why is it always you begin to think of a response that would make them know that you were bothered? And so when I began to think about the thoughts that I had myself, I began to come up with some answers, like you said. And the truth is, everybody that bumps you in a crowded room, they didn't purposely do it. Everyone that said something that I considered bad or disrespectful, in their understanding, they didn't. So a key to my understanding has been opening myself up to understand that everyone has a different perspective.
Mhm.
And when I consider that, when I look at when people say and do things now, I think immediately, okay, what is their perspective versus in extreme thinking? They meant this, they meant that. When I'm not God, I can't read minds. And so what you're saying, it resonates with me.
That is so good. I like the word that you use, perspective. You know, Priscilla and I, when we go into corporate and we teach corporate managers on communication skills, leadership skills, and how to interface with other departments so that the bottom line, the production line, the revenue streams that are coming into the company are where they need to be. But many times, what happens in our communication with others, we're not seeing things as they see them. And as you were saying, sometimes we can be quick to judge, or we can assume that if that person bumped me and they had a certain facial expression, that, maybe they're trying to intimidate me, and we could be offended at that. But the best thing to do is try to that I'm realizing and learning and even coaching others in is, if you take the illustration of a beach ball. Priscilla uses this, I use this, and we say, let's take a beach ball and just imagine I'm holding up a beach ball for just a moment. And so I'm looking at one side of the beach ball, but you're looking at the other side of the beach ball. Now, on my side, I see green and I see orange and I see blue. What do you see, Sean?
I see
What
red.
color do you?
I see white.
Okay. What other color do you see?
Right now, I'm with the red and the white.
Okay. You see red and white. Now, see, you're seeing red and white, but I'm seeing a different spectrum on my side. I see it from another angle. But if I can better understand through asking questions what you see on your side, then I can better understand of how to connect with you, because everyone communicates. The question is, are we connecting? And it's when my heart begins to resonate with your heart and your thinking that I can position myself to think with you, and we can be thinking partners, and we can move forward in our thinking, and we can accomplish much as we begin to think forward together, and as we begin to ask questions to better understand, and we realize that, oh, that's where he is. So, I would say in a conversation that if you can grab one good takeaway in communicating with others, and desire to better understand others versus being understood, that it positions us in a place of flexibility, getting along better with others, living a more peaceful life, letting go of some of the old mindsets and some of the old ways of thinking, embracing new ways of thinking, and embracing new things to communicate. And then connections will really start opening up, and our life becomes more pleasurable, more enjoyable. We enjoy ourselves more. We enjoy others more. And so this question that you have in regard to thinking, dysfunctional thinking, Sean, I go back to 30 years ago in my life. I had a college education. I had a great career. I wore a suit to work. I was a field engineer, had a great job. But on the inside, I had some very dysfunctional thinking. But when I had some teachers show up in my life, because I didn't learn some of these things in college or high school, as far as thinking. But, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so many times in our life, as we gravitate to mentors or leaders or people that can speak into our lives, it can accelerate our personal growth and development, and it can accelerate our success by listening, by receiving, and then allowing those words of insight, those words that bring not only information but revelation to us. Then we step out into a new thought process. And as we allow our thoughts to change and become on a higher level, our attitude changes, which takes our altitude up to a new level.
And
And
so
so,
when you're saying that, because I know someone's watching this and we're here to help, one takeaway, one answer, one remedy for dysfunctional thinking is consider the other's perspective. When I make a statement like they will never or nothing ever goes right, take a brief moment take a breath, and consider, if I'm seeing that from this perspective, what are some other perspectives that I can see it from? And another takeaway that I've taken so far from what you're saying to address dysfunctional thinking, tell yourself the truth. Tell myself the truth. The reality is, if I can make the assumption that they always do this or nothing ever, that really is not the truth. Meaning, if I actually took a pen and I tallied it and I said, nothing ever goes right in my life, period. And then I write, this didn't go right, my marriage didn't go right, my job didn't go right, my friendships didn't go right. That's one column. What did go right? Well, I woke up and I planned to take the trash out. That went right.
Mhm.
I'm going to take a class with Ken and Priscilla that's going to help me get my dysfunctional thinking right. I haven't taken the class yet, but I'm going to take the class. So, perspective and telling the truth are two great takeaways I think everyone that's watching this video can utilize to help dysfunctional thinking. I mean, you're saying a lot, but I really think those two things, perspective, having the proper perspective and considering others' perspective, and telling ourselves the whole truth. I often tell my friends, play the whole tape. You know, like we're doing this and we're sharing, and we might finish and we might be like, man, we could have said this, we could have said that. And I would say, okay, play the whole tape. The same way those thoughts are coming in.
Yeah.
Have the other thoughts. Look at what we did say. Look at what we did accomplish. If it helps one person. And so I just encourage everyone, when you're considering not only your perspective, but others' perspectives, and when you're telling yourself the truth, a simple way to remember to do all that, play the whole tape. When dysfunctional thoughts come, okay, I heard those thoughts, hear the other thoughts too. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's great. I think one of the things at the center of our being is, what do we desire? And, that word is Desire. And sire is seed. And so thoughts are seeds. And so thoughts come to all of us. Our mind is like a thought factory with thoughts continually coming. And some of those thoughts are negative. And I was visiting with a gentleman yesterday at one of our roundtables, and he said, there's so much negative thinking in my environment. And he said, I want to make a change and I want to start thinking more positive. And I said, what you said is a very powerful statement, because it's when you desire in your heart of hearts to change, you can do it. Now, it's not going to be easy, but the first step is having a desire to realize. And I think the first thing is being aware. I think self-awareness of where we are, not necessarily the other person. I've noticed in the KPM Leadership Academy that many times people, including myself, we can get our eyes on other people, but we need to dial in to look at our own hearts and say, where am I? I need to be self-aware of where I am in my thinking, and what adjustments do I want to make, if any. And if I like where I am, then good. If I want to make some adjustments, there's no problem with that. We can all make adjustments, make changes, and arrive at our future self through refined thinking, reading. Leaders are readers. And so it's reading the right information. I had one gentleman one day that said, man, I've read all kind of novels, but this personal development that you're giving me, this is all brand new. And after we finished the course, he said, man, this has changed my life, because what I've realized is I've been reading stuff that has not been benefiting me. It hadn't changed my thinking. It hasn't renewed my thinking. It hasn't changed my behavior for the better. But what we're reading here, and as a result of being accountable with one another in a group setting through group coaching, he said, I'm not even the same person. And so he said, I've got so many desires now. I want to do some cooking. I want to learn how to cook. I've got other books I want to read. And so it really took his whole mindset to a new place of enthusiasm, of desiring to grow. And so I think that our desire, our heart's desire, whatever that heart's desire is where we're going to arrive. And so dysfunctional thinking many times is in our mind, which I'm not talking about the brain. I'm talking about the heart of hearts, because as a result of saying things habitually over and over again, even though that might not be the truth, it becomes a truth in your world because you believe what you say and you have what you say. And so many times we've said something repeatedly based on what we're watching and observing, when that doesn't have to be how it is. Our world can change through our words, through our thinking, through our associations. And so I just want to encourage the folks that are watching today that if you desire to change, you can. If you desire to arrive at a future place, you can. If you desire to grow in your thinking, you can. You can do all things through the power of Christ who strengthens you. And wherever someone may be today, their past does not dictate their future.
I appreciate you. I look forward to our next conversation. If I remember correctly, right now, the KPM Leadership Academy, you have veterans being trained. What
Yes.
else is going on with that?
We have veterans that are being trained. We have people that are reintegrating from being in prison to the civilian life that we're working with and desire to work with and desire to help people that are transitioning. You know, anytime someone's transitioning, there's definitely vulnerabilities. And so we desire to help people and making that transition. And I believe that right now, all over the world, that there are people transitioning. Currently, we've got people in other nations that we're taking through either the KPM Leadership Academy, or we've already implemented the KPM Leadership Academy in the realm of entrepreneurship. And as a result of that entrepreneurship that we're doing in other nations, we are seeing some great change in the lives of people from some of the very topics we're talking about here today, Sean.
Okay. Well, we're going to revisit this. I know you've
Okay,
got some things to do. I've got some things to do, and I know some things that we shared are going to help some people. So I really appreciate you. Okay.
great. Appreciate you, Sean.